Hi, Sissy. Thanks very much for joining us in this video interview. It's great seeing you again here.
Hey, Gina, thanks for having me here. Yeah.
Great, great, great. So here we're going to talk about cryptocurrency, of course, and Binance is definitely one of the leading crypto exchanges out there, and we do see a lot of interest still in people trading cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. Now, at this stage, we're seeing that Bitcoin market cap has grown to something like $1 trillion already, and increasingly, we're seeing a lot of high street financial institutions. They are actually dabbling into the asset class. I'm just wondering your views about which markets do you see that Bitcoin is further going to pivot into the mainstream, and do you see more financial institutions coming in?
Yeah, I think so I think that's definitely going to happen, and it's going to happen at a very big scale. But picking which specific sector is going to take off in the future is usually quite hard. But I think also Bitcoin is a multi-asset class technology. It's not just one, it's not just a currency, it's not just a commodity, it's not just a new asset type. It's just a whole new platform, a whole new technology. So the many of the traditional funds, what you may refer to as high street guys, they're looking at Bitcoin as a investment instrument. So they come into Bitcoin, they invest Bitcoin, and they hold some Bitcoins for the appreciation in value. And the more of those guys come in, the more the value actually goes up. So the more people, but at the same time, the more use cases Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies have, the total market size grows, and they help grow each other. So, for example, right now NFTs are very hot. NFTs provides a new way for artists to monetize their work, and which will in turn incentivize more artists to do more work. So we'll get better artists because of NFTs. NFTs will grow the crypto space. GameFi is very big now. DeFi is still growing and still very big, and traditional centralized exchanges are pretty big. There are things like payments, which were obvious but didn't really take off yet. We're taking another stab at it. This Binance Pay, this Binance Marketplace, not guaranteed to be successful, but we'll keep trying to continue to push. So I think one of the interesting things, the very obvious use cases, okay, like let's say Bitcoin is going to replace the payments, haven't really happened. But the edge cases, the new use cases that people have never thought about, GameFi, you can play games to earn money now. So you can play games to earn a few $100s a month. For a young kid in the Philippines, that's pretty good money. NFTs, now artists can monetize, content creators can monetize. So all of those things were new use cases that people didn't really imagine before, and they just somehow took off. So I think it's going to be pretty hard to pick which one's going to be the next one. Our approach has always been monitor the industry, and whatever is trending, whatever's already taking adoption, we just want to add to it. We want to contribute to that, and we want to add liquidity to it. We want to be part of it. So that's kind of how we operate. Very hard to forecast, but I think there's going to be a lot of new use cases that we didn't even imagine before.
But do you indeed see more financial institutions coming into the market?
Absolutely. The financial institutions are coming in big time. There's the what we call institutional investors that's definitely increasing on our platform. With the data is very obvious. We also see the traditional financial services firms, some of the bigger names moving into the space, like the Fidelities, etc. So those are huge funds, and we're also seeing. We also seen traditional VC investors moving into this space heavily, including sovereign wealth funds, including large VCs that have hundreds of billions of dollars on their balance sheets. They're moving into this space. They're not moving all of that money in 100% right away, but they're kind of tiptoeing, but they're looking at it. Yeah.
So you mentioned about the sort of payment hasn't really happened yet, but I do remember quite a few academics out there are saying that, well, Bitcoin could be a store of value. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of central banks, including that of Hong Kong, including that of Singapore, perhaps, and also the PBOC are testing, the sovereign digital currency, the ECNY. What's your view about the potential for cryptocurrency to actually grow into a means of payment while we have the central banks actually testing and actually piloting their own sovereign digital currency?
Yeah, I think all of those things are really positive development for Bitcoin to become a payment, or crypto to become a payment tool. And I think central bank digital currencies are good. They have some advantages and some maybe limitations. The advantages, look, it's issued by the government, issued by the central bank, and they can force banks to use it. And that increases adoption that helps with the education of people around cryptocurrencies. And it also increases the credibility and the acceptance of cryptocurrencies among the general population. So there's the education and adoption mechanism effects of that. And once people use a CBDC to pay for coffee, they could also say, oh, this is very similar to Bitcoin. I can also use Bitcoin to pay my other friend in a different country. And so the CBDCs probably will have somewhat limited freedom. There'll be permission. They will have a lot more check and balances. They will be somewhat different from Bitcoin. Most of the versions of CBDCs that's being proposed right now seems to be like that. But at the same time, I think all of those things are very good to promote Bitcoin cryptocurrencies to become a means of payment. And there's some subtle differences as well. So like for me personally, 2 years ago, if I want to pay somebody and if I ask them, hey, do you want to accept crypto? It feels a little bit weird. So sometimes people say yes or no. Today, everybody I interact with personally, I just ask, hey, can I, whenever I have to settle something, pay somebody, I always ask, hey, can I pay you in crypto? They always say yes. So today it's no longer rude to ask somebody, hey, do you want to accept crypto? If they don't want Bitcoin, I can pay in BUSD or a stable coin or some. So most people actually just, I think today I'm actually shifting towards asking them, can I pay you in BNB?
Right, I see. And it's probably one of the more popular sort of cryptocurrency out there. I can see that. I remember one time I saw your picture about a car actually having BNB as a car license plate. Yeah, I think that was in Asia. But you mentioned about NFT. Definitely, you guys have been at the forefront, and you have already a platform that helps trade arts and collectibles based on the NFTs. Now, what I'm wondering is, and at the SCMP, by the way, we do also have NFTs and blockchain using it to sort of archive our news, as well as in our attempt to sort of preserve real news and bust fake news. But I'm just wondering, your views about what's the use cases going forward. I mean, are you seeing new use cases for the NFTs apart from arts and collectibles that you think that's in the pipeline, that is something that's tradable on your exchange, for example?
Yeah, so I think NFTs has a huge market that we're just at the beginning. So right now, the most obvious one, look, you create some content, it could be news on SCMP, and you say, okay, I'm gonna sell this piece of news as an NFT. We don't know, somebody probably will pay for it given how crazy NFTs are selling. And you can create some other new content. So right now, that's the most obvious one, the art creation, etc. But look, in games, there are virtual artifacts that you can NFT, and then and you can collect them while you're in the game, and so that introduces an element of chance if you happen to collect that, and those are tradable not just in the game, not just in that publisher. Those are tradable on Binance exchange. So that's a liquid, movable asset now, and this has a lot of interesting effects. And also, like, for example, there are many other logistics use cases. For example, you can sell concert tickets. Most concerts tickets have one seat, have a seat number on a date, and you can sell those tickets using NFTs. And and then when you enter the gate, you can just either swipe touch your phone or swipe a QR code, and then NFT is used. And then that has history. So there's a lot more really innovative use cases for NFTs. And that, I think we're just at the beginning. So in addition to just content creators, I know like all the sports fans, sports teams, racing car teams, all of those guys, they're using NFTs, collectibles, etc. So and even for Binance, when on our first or second year anniversary, we actually issued some NFTs 3 years ago. I don't know who holds them, but in a few years, those NFTs may become a collectible. Who knows? Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting use cases that we can do. Yeah.
Is that a big market in NFT? Say, for example, in Asian markets such as in Singapore or perhaps in Hong Kong, do you see that being very sizable?
I think it will be very sizable. So not to disclose any names, but based on our NFTs team's reports, they are talking to every single large content creator, be it like movie producers, music producers, sports teams, anything that has to do with content or with creation. So there's very large movie studios, very large music studios. All looking at this. So I think we're just at the beginning. I think this is an aspect that will really change the other industries that's not in crypto, but using the crypto technology, which is good for crypto. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely very positive. And Zizi, I remember how you mentioned that you're ready to actually in terms of licensing, seek licenses in whichever jurisdictions that are ready to issue them. There's a
Yeah.
lot more clarity in the regulatory environment today. So I'm just curious, can you share a little bit about what Binance is doing to get yourself ready and prepare for this sort of licensing?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so 4 years ago when we started, we want to embrace the decentralized model. So we want to be like, decentralized team, decentralized everywhere. But we do run one centralized exchange, which is one of our biggest the biggest part of our business. And now we've come to realize that for the regulators, we need to be centralized to be. So there are very simple questions regulators used to ask us, which we couldn't, which we respond. It's kind of funny because the regulators ask us, "Where's your headquarters?" And our response is, well, we don't have a headquarter. That doesn't go well with regulators. They don't know how to work with us. They don't know and sometimes they even think we're dodgy, obviously. So that kind of response, that kind of structure does not work well with regulators. Regulators expect a centralized structure, which we're setting up. And so for the centralized exchange business, we need to be centralized. We need to have a centralized entity behind it with clear cap tables, clear investors, with a proper board, proper governance, with very transparent KYC, AML procedures, and with very strong risk controls, which we have. And we're also changing some of our processes in place. When we first started, we had a non-KYC tier, which we eliminated. So now on Binance.com, everything has to be every user is fully KYC'd. There are other smaller exchanges who are not doing that yet, but we are leading by example to say, look, we need to prepare ourselves to be fully. We need to shift. We need to change. We need to enhance, and there are other So there's many things that we do along those fronts to become more to make it much easier to work for regulators to work with us. And before there's also an attitude difference. Plus, on top of that, we're hiring a large teams of very seasoned, experienced compliance people, ideally ex-regulators, so that they come into our organization, they understand what's going on internally, and then they can speak the same language to their ex-colleagues. We're doing a lot of things, all the things on those fronts. The other thing is a mentality shift. Before, we just wait for the regulators to ask us questions, and then we provide them some answers, and we don't know what the context that is. We don't. Some of the questions may not be clear, etc. We've been more reactive before. Now we've been much more proactive. We said, hey, can we come in and explain ourselves, explain our entire structure to you? This is how we do KYC. This is how we do AML, and we're also being much more transparent on the data front. So you want to know some data about users in your country. Here's the data. We're very careful with not sharing cross-country data. So that part, I think, that's an easy to understand part. So we're doing all of those things to facilitate the becoming more regulated and becoming and work very closely with regulators. We also give advices to the regulators who would like to listen. So for example, we did advise the Ukraine crypto bill that was just passed like 3 days ago. So we work with them, say, look, what kind of regulations are good? What kind of regulations are bad? There are some there are some not so thoughtful regulations in the space, right? So for one example would be like there was regulations that require exchanges to hold a private key in a locked room, in a secure room. So that's a very traditional way of holding gold. But when you have one single private key in one place, somebody could easily take a picture of it or copy it and steal it. That's not very secure. So we use multi-sig to be more secure. Different geographic locations, etc. So we there are other topics like how do you classify cryptocurrency? What are the impacts of you classifying that as a currency versus a commodity? There are different tax implications for each transaction. So if you classify Bitcoin as a commodity, there will be no trading volume in that jurisdiction. And the further follow-on effects, when there's no trading volume, there's no liquidity, there's no projects, there's no industry. So we do a lot of those things now. Whereas before, when we were a startup, we just focused on building a startup. But now we are the largest player in this industry by far.
Definitely.
And we want to help shape the regulatory landscape.
Yep, I'm really glad to hear, and I'm really thankful you're here with us today. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to talking to you very soon again.
Thank you, Georgina, for having me.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Susie.